what about therapy as making therapy a lot more accessible to the employees as compared to an individual accessing therapy? Corporates could bring therapy access to the individuals as well. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, this has again become a very common practice, especially in the past 18, 20 months, I think. A lot of companies, especially startups, but I think bigger companies have started offering sort of campus therapists. I have mixed feelings about it, to be honest.
Okay.
I would rather not do it. I would rather give people the money that they need to, take care of themselves, and then, let them choose. Because again, I'm not doubting the intent of most of these companies. But you have to understand that you're dealing with a very delicate affair here. You're dealing with mental health, you're dealing with a person's identity issues, you're dealing with extreme privacy sensibilities, privacy and confidentiality issues. And it is a real concern that employees have, that what if, they disclose something to their therapist who is ultimately paid for by the employer, and what if this just becomes public? This is a real concern. I get messages and mails from people all the time saying that they would rather that the companies gave them the money that they need to pay for therapy, and then let them choose whichever professional they want to seek help from. At most, what you can do is create a database of reliable therapists and share that with your employees. But I would be a little wary of offering in-house therapy. Group therapy is a different matter. Group therapy is interesting. It can work in certain situations, especially in conflict situations, or when the team is going through sort of, for instance, during the pandemic, many teams, especially small teams, there was a lot of loss, and people were going through collective grief, collective trauma. So if you come together as a group, as a team, and there is a professional to hold your hand through that sort of process of grieving and mourning for the losses, that's a different thing. That's a different grammar altogether. But for individuals, I would say, hey, if you really want to help them, just give them an allowance and let them use it in whatever they want to use it. And you don't even have to worry about what they're using it for.
This is not a new phenomena. There's a lot of therapy services are now reaching directly to the corporates and offering them as part of the employee benefits package.
Correct.
I think what you're asking is that be a lot more, as corporates, you should scrutinize such services in a way that there is no confidentiality breach.
Yes.
The corporate should also be very transparent to the employees of what data is shared and not.
Yes.
For instance, I can tell you, we work with mental health partners, and we take it to the corporates which access health insurance with us as well. And there we have very clearly laid out what data is exchanged and not. For instance, only the billing data is something which companies have access to, of what kind of therapies, how many number of therapies happened, and what happens inside the therapy is a sacrosanct between the therapist and the employees who are going through that experience.
Right.
But what I also hear from you is that these privacy concerns are coming out because maybe employees are not completely privy to what kind of data is being exchanged in the backend.
They don't have any idea.
Yeah.
And in fact, most employees don't even know that this is a question that they need to ask. Or let me say, many employees don't know that this is a question that they should ask. A lot of employees are very wary that this might go very badly wrong. So if you can proactively sort of over-communicate, and give them a commitment in writing, that will allay a lot of concerns.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing is, you talked about these mental health partners that a lot of companies are now using. Directionally, is this a great development? Directionally, I would say, in a country like ours where access is a huge problem, technology has to step in. There is no getting around it. But hey, we have to ask the tough questions. in a country like Finland, about a year ago, we had a massive data breach involving a therapy chain where people's therapy notes were accessed by blackmailers, and then massive ransom calls were made. Earlier this year, we had a case in the US where a suicide prevention helpline was selling anonymized data to a for-profit company that was a sister company. These things happen. This is not shocking.
Yeah, these are therapy services individually.
Right.
And what you're saying is, and especially so for corporates or even the health benefits providers like Plum, what we need to do is we need to do more scrutiny.
More scrutiny, understand
of what their practices are, how the data is being stored.
Correct.
And privacy and security practices and repercussions of.
To give you a very small, but a very pertinent example, in sort of classical old-fashioned therapy, they will take notes on paper, right? Which is much safer than storing it digitally somewhere on the cloud, right? Now, this is a problem. This is a question that many people may not even know to ask, especially if you are new to the world of therapy. First time accessing the service. So as an employer, it is if you are doing this to truly make this a comfortable experience for your employee, then you can't stop by just hiring a therapist or an app. You have to then go the extra mile and tell your employee that these are the various things. So for instance, during the pandemic, therapy on over video calls became very, very, that was the default mode, right? On Zoom, on Skype, on all of these platforms. Most people, not just employees of organizations, but most people, I don't know what the vulnerabilities of Zoom are. I don't know what the vulnerabilities of Skype are. What can happen if you don't update the software in a timely fashion. I have no idea. My therapist also doesn't know. So, but if something goes wrong there, it's I have chosen my therapist. There's no employer involved. If you get involved, then you have to take care of the full stack, right? You can't just say, okay, here I have done my bit by just hiring a therapist.